Well, Shabbat Shalom. I just want to welcome everyone to the Sabbath Day conference call. This is Barbara, and I'm serving as one of your hosts today. And we just want to welcome all our family and friends that are here today, those that are on the phone or internet, or maybe you are listening to the recording or the YouTube channel. We just want to invite everyone to go to the website, lunarsabbathday.com. There's a lot of information there about the Creator's Sabbath. That's all based on Scripture. There are videos, articles, calendars. Also, you can go to the events page and see when we're meeting for the fall feast that's coming up, or also to join us for Sabbaths and new moon days. So today we're ready to start our discussion, and Brother Pete said that he would help with the reading. And the title today is Lunar Sabbath versus Saturday Sabbath. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that is you today.
This is Pete for Troy. Lew White does not know this, but his book Fossilized Customs was a huge influence on me and was very instrumental in my journey toward truth. I have even spoken to him on the phone. His book helped me to recognize that paganism has pervaded Christianity, helping me understand the feast better, and also that the men in possessions of spiritual authority can and must be questioned and held accountable. For that, I owe him a great debt of gratitude. And if you care, nothing wrong with that if employed properly. And if you care to join me on this journey, I am as curious as you are about how this is going to turn out. But I will say this, no one has successfully brought a charge against the Lunar Sabbath, and Brother White will not be the first.
Okay, well, this is a picture Brother White has put up, Lunar Sabbath System, and it's a picture of a wolf man in front of the moon.
I had been outside during a full moon. It seems that I was completely unaware that Lew White snapped a photo of me. I suppose that the only legal reason I can't sue him for publishing a photo without my permission is that you can't identify me in a silhouette. Of course, I'm joking.
Okay, and Lew says, as if we need more confusion, and then there's a picture up here of the phases of the moon, and it's very accurate. It has new moon day as number 1, the first quarter day 8, full moon day 15, the last quarter 22, and 29th is Sabbath. And by the picture, he's got, as if we need more confusion, are these Sabbaths? And then also he says, or as some insist, the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th.
And Joy says, look at this lunar illustration. Does it look confusing? Looks rather uniform, balanced, even symmetrical and natural to me. I could not have created a better illustration. For the sake of this argument, we're going to stick with the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. The 14th day of the first lunar month, Abib 14, is Passover, a preparation day for the Sabbath of unleavened bread, which is Abib 15. So the 14th can never be a weekly Sabbath. It's a work day. There are new lunar Sabbatarians who inadvertently come to the conclusion that the Sabbaths are the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th days of the month. But the math simply does not work. Or they learn these are Babylonian Sabbaths and quickly adopt.
Okay. Lunar Sabbaths, like Sunday, are an abomination of desolation.
And Troy says, And his evidence is where? These are strong words. Let's see if he bothers to try to back them up with something called evidence, or if he merely wishes you to accept his word for it.
The Sabbath is the sign of an everlasting covenant. And Brother Lew says the temple not made with hands is the bride of Yeshua. He is the master of the Sabbath, and the Sabbath is the sign of the everlasting covenant, Ezekiel 20. If the teaching removes this sign and sets up an abomination that desolates the covenant and its sign, we have turned aside to myths and doctrines of demons.
And Troy says, the Zen master has spoken. Brother White alludes to Mark 14:58. But the context of the verse says nothing about the temple made without hands being the bride of Yeshua. Rather, the illustration is that of Yeshua referring to his body, the mortal temple. If Yeshua is the master of the Sabbath, then he was also was so in a masterly fashion. Every weekly Sabbath that can be dated, identified in the New Testament, fell on either the 8th, 15th, 22nd, or 29th days of the month, without exception. Same for the Old Testament.
Okay, and then I put a calendar here showing the Sabbaths as 8, 15, 22, and 29.
Troy says, indeed, the Sabbath is a sign of a covenant, and the Sabbath is also identified as a sign in Exodus 31:13, Ezekiel 20:12, and 20:20. And Genesis 1:16 says that the signs, using the same Hebrew word in the three other verses listed, would be regulated by either the sun or the moon, one of the great lights in the heavens. Lunar Sabbatarians do not remove this sign. We embrace it fully. Troy continues, Brother White, can you go outside and look at the sun and tell whether it's a satire day or the Sabbath? No, the sun looks the same every day. The moon, however, is a different story. See the photo. Thanks, Brother White. The photo is a great illustration of how simple the truth is.
Okay, Brother Lew says, circumbobulating or dwarf is discussed below. Moon dancing too. Fossilize this. This is a small glimpse of another circular form of worship, powwow, sacred fires, fire dancing, circumbobulation, dancing in a circle of life, drums, animal disguises, sacrificing tobacco, tea, and meat to the fire, moon dancing. Hey now, it's not just for the Cub Scout Jamboree. The online encyclopedia, Wikipedia, tells us it derives from the Narragansett word powwow, meaning shaman. It has since come to be used to describe any gathering of Native Americans of any tribe, and as such is occasionally heard in older Western movies. The word has also been used to refer to any meeting, but especially a congress, a friendly gathering, or a meeting of powerful people, such as the military.
Troy says, and yet another rabbit is chased. That is absolutely nothing to do with the lunar Sabbath or the false Sabbath, satire day Sabbath.
Says, okay, evidence for 7-day pattern not based on the moon.
Troy, look at this photo again. How many days between the 1st and the 8th? That's 7. How many days between the 8th and 15th? It's 7. Try 15 to the 22nd. Yeah, again it's 7. And the 22nd to the 29th. 7. See the perfect balance between the phases of the moon on 7-day intervals?
Okay. Lew asked this question, and this is the question that was on the previous page. Can any evidence be found in Scripture of a repeating 7-day pattern? So he also says the answer will cause paradigm collapse trauma.
And Troy says, you can look up paradigm collapse trauma in a medical dictionary, and you will learn that it does not exist. It is something Brother White has made up, and when he makes up terms that are not directed at you or what you believe, he can be quite clever. Troy continues, I ask this question all the time, and no one, including Lew White, will offer a text that says that Sabbath is on an unbroken, repeating 7-day cycle. The only reason he thinks that the weeks are on a repeating 7-day pattern is he reads the passages he will no doubt offer below. Then he looks at the pagan papal calendar and draws the conclusions that the 7-day weeks spoken of in Scripture repeat as they do on the Gregorian calendar. And I will show you that the text he offers do not at all say what he thinks they say. Not
the evidence of Scripture for the 7-day pattern again. And, okay, I'll just read the Brother Lew answer. First, he says, look in any concordance for the word week in Hebrew, Shavuot, Strong's number 7620. This word is based on the word Shiva, 7. And Troy says true there. And so the word Sabbaton is used 58 times in the Messianic writings, or Brit Hadashah, and translated as the 7th day of the week, or weekly Sabbath day.
Troy says, not sure why Brother White thinks what the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament has to do about the Sabbath is so important. Last I knew, the Sabbath commandment originated in the Old Testament. The Hebrew word for Sabbath, that's H7676, Shabbat, appears 111 times in 98 verses in the Old Testament. The Hebrew word for week, that's H7620, Shavuot, appears 19 times in 16 verses in the Old Testament. The Hebrew word for 7, that's H7651, Shabbat, appears in the Old Testament 395 times in 346 verses. And get this, the Hebrew word for the word week and 7 is H7650, Shabbat. And the root word for Sabbath is 7673, Shabbat. So in reality, even though all three of these words have a sh and a ah and a ba in them, in Hebrew, 7 and weeks are not related linguistically to the word Sabbath. Please note that this entire paragraph of Lew White is an effort to link the 7 to the word Sabbath. I am not denying that there are 7 days in a week and that the same week ends in a Sabbath, but it is a false assumption to assume that these words are related. 2, that T-W-O, T-O-O, and T-O are all spelled similarly in English. They even sound the same, but they are not related. How the Greek words are related or interrelated is irrelevant. The Sabbath command is not originally given in Greek.
Okay, and I pretty much copied this whole rebuttal over word for word, so this is how it goes. So Brother Lew says, but in 9 other cases, Shavuot is translated as week, referring to the cycle or period of 7 days we are familiar with.
And Troy says, no, it is related to, no, it is referring to a week, 1 week. A repeating cycle is neither mentioned nor implied. Again, Brother White reads the verses, then looks at the Gregorian calendar and makes the diabolical leap of faith that the word week spoken of in the New Testament is referring to the Roman calendar week.
Okay. Further, in the complaint against the Sabbath, Brother Lew says, further, at Leviticus 23:15 and 16, the weekly Sabbaths are used to count off 7 Sabbaths. It tells us to count 7 completed Sabbaths up until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath. You can count 50 days. So this is all about Pentecost.
Troy says, the phrase Sabbath complete is a Hebrew idiom that means complete 7-day week.
Do the math, says Lew.
Troy continues, please do the math, Brother White. Were you told to count days from wave sheaf? No. You were told to count to number 50 days after you get to the morrow, after the 7th Sabbath complete. You are adding 1 day to the 7th Sabbath and calling it 50 days when you were not told to number 1 day after the morrow, after the 7th Sabbath. You were told to add 50. More complete evidence is given at the scriptural count of the Feast of Weeks, when Pentecost is fully come, and the link is given below.
Okay, there's a little picture of what it would look like on a calendar. But you know, Brother Lew brought this up right in the beginning of his article, and this is a really deep subject, the subject of the Pentecost. And there's other objections that could have been up towards the front, but this very lengthy and hard discussion is right up front here, so it would kind of deter some people away, I think. Okay, Brother Lew says, this is another example and even numbers the total elapsed days involved. So we know that Shavuot falls on the first day of the week each year. Then I've got a chart here of every Sunday that Pentecost has landed on our Gregorian calendar on Sunday in the last decade.
Troy says, no it does not, Brother White. Fossilize this. You are repeating the Catholic count to Pentecost. You recognize the pagan holidays, but you fail to recognize when the papacy was usurped, when the papacy has usurped the Father's holidays.
As Brian Allen recently pointed out, in the weekly Sabbaths were governed by the moon. If the weekly Sabbath were governed by the moon, you'd run into trouble reconciling the 7th Sabbaths within this 50 days, because you'd have 2 new moons falling within this period.
Troy continues, Brian Allen is also observing the Catholic count to Pentecost. More complete evidence to come.
And I have the 2 calendars here for 2020 showing the Gregorian calendar, Passover week, and then the Pentecost week on a Gregorian calendar. So Brother Lew says, the way they, Lunar Sabbathers, figure it, you'd have more than 7 Sabbaths within 50 days' time. In just 30 days, the Lunar Sabbath folks calculate 6 Sabbaths, and so they reach their count to the day after their 7th Sabbath in only 37 days.
Well, either Brother White does not have a clue what Lunar Sabbath keepers believe, or he thinks to slander us with impunity. New moon days are not Sabbaths. The only new moon that is called or counted as a Sabbath is the 7th new moon, Feast of Trumpets, which is not part of the integral count toward Pentecost.
And Brother Lew said instead of taking 49 days to get there, they reached 7 Sabbaths in only 37 days.
Oh, brother, no. We reach 7 Sabbaths at the end of the 7th Sabbath complete. You know, it's kind of like commanded that way. Does Brother White think lunar Sabbath keepers are so ignorant that we can't count 7 Sabbaths? The implication of the Hebrew idiom Sabbath complete is a complete 7-day week, 7 of them. This is a very false and misleading accusation, one that he will be eating when I get to the end of this very long paragraph. Salt? Pepper?
Okay, and I've got a creation calendar up here showing the complete week would show 6 working days and a Sabbath. Brother Lew says Shavuot, or weeks, is the plural of Shavuah, week, and is a high Sabbath, and follows the weekly 7th-day Sabbath. In another place, sabbatical years are explained, in parentheses, 7 cycles of 7 years each, Sheba, Shabbatha, Shana, 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years, Leviticus 25:8. So that we can determine when the year of Jubilee arrives, the 50th year of the cycle.
Joy says, I'm glad Brother White brought this up. Please note that the 50th year, the Jubilee year, interrupts the 7 land Sabbath cycles. The land Sabbath cycle is not a repeating 7-year cycle, and neither are the Hebrew weeks a repeating 7-day cycle.
Remember, Shavuot means week, and Shavuot means weeks. A Shavuot would represent a complete week of 7 days from day 1 through Sabbath, the 7th day. After that, we have the first day of the week, starting over again, as most of us can wrap our minds around that concept.
Troy continues, so can lunar Sabbath keepers. We can count 7 days of the week as well as any 4 or 5-year-old. It ain't rocket science. The problem is that just like the papacy and the Gregorian calendar, Brother White and Brian Allen do not understand that the new moon days are not weekdays. They are a third category of day. Evidence forthcoming at the end of this long paragraph is at hand.
And it's a very long paragraph with all this interaction going on in it. In fact, the whole article, if you read the whole article, is 98 pages long, and I've only just taken a little bit of it here for you. And okay, here are 3 types of days in Scripture. We're going to address that a little bit more. And the 3 types of days are new moon days, Sabbaths, and work days, and you can find that in Ezekiel 46:1. And this is me talking, not Brother Lew. Okay, Lew White says, the week of 7 days cannot be altered by mankind. The 7 lampstands on the menorah remain an eternal sign of Yahuwah's Torah, and the 7 days of the week remain an eternal sign of Yahuwah's act of creation.
Troy says, yes, lunar Sabbath keepers are wondering, same as you, just what a paradigm collapse expression is for or about and what causes it. The 7 wicks on the menorah is never linked to the 7 days of the week anywhere in Scripture. To claim that they are linked without scriptural support is unwise. Add thou not unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar. However, we are not at all confused about the new moon or the count to Pentecost, and I'm going to make good on my promise for evidence that proves Brother White and Brian Allen are wrong, while at the same time proves the lunar Sabbath. The most salient point here is that a Sabbath complete is one yardstick to measure time. A day is an entirely different yardstick. I am 5 feet 9 inches tall. 2 separate units of measure are used. You don't measure the 5 feet from my heels, and then turn around and measure the 9 inches from my heels also. You add the 9 inches after the 12th inch of the 5th foot. Pentecost also has 2 separate units of measure. 7 weeks are counted or completed, and then the 50 days are counted. There is no command in Leviticus to begin the 50-day count at wave sheaf. It says to number 50 days from the morrow after the 7th Sabbath complete. Quote, and ye shall count unto you from the from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall ye number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering to Yahweh. That's Leviticus 23, 15 and 16. These are weeks as reckoned on Yahweh's calendar, not the Gregorian Roman calendar. Yahweh's weeks do not count new moon days. See the creation calendar study. If you will read the context of the passage, the 50 days are numbered from the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, not from, and I can't read the last line. My screen doesn't go there.
All right, that's down below there. Whoops, okay. Okay, then there, I have a calendar up here just showing how it would be the 29th day of the 4th month, because you count 1 complete Sabbath, 1 complete week with the Sabbath, and the 2 complete weeks, the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Sabbaths complete. Then you start counting the 50 days. It's on the chart here, so I hope you can see it on the screen. And you can pause it to study it out.
And Joy says, the following study will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Feast of Weeks, aka or also known as Pentecost, is in the summer, not a mere 50 days from the wave sheaf. That is the scriptural count to Feast of Weeks when Pentecost is fully come, and the link is given.
Yeah. And then we did a YouTube too. Yeah, thank you, brother. It's in blue there, but it's a YouTube that we have on our website about, and actually Troy did that YouTube presentation, PowerPoint presentation, what is the count to Pentecost. And also we have an excellent article there by Dan Hume, re-examining the traditional count to Pentecost. Okay, sorry, Brother Pete. Okay, go ahead, Brother Troy there.
Israel did not recognize New Moon Day as a day of the week. If last month began with a new moon, and the 2nd month after creation began with a new moon, what do you think the 1st month of the 1st year of Earth's history began with? New moon. Genesis 1, verses 1 and 2, and Ezekiel 46:1 prove that New Moon Day, the 1st day of every month, even the 1st month of Earth's history, is a 3rd category of day, not counted as a weekday. Genesis 1, 1 through 2, is a time consuming creation event. A time-consuming creation event that was not included in the 1st work week, yet it was part of the 1st month of the Earth's history. Looks like this.
Okay, and I had a calendar there, but okay, go ahead, Brother Pete, if you want to read that. It just shows
Sure, it's It's a list given of days of the week, and I'll read it slightly modified for what it is. But the first day, he says, is new moon, and it says Genesis 1, verses 1 and 2. And then day 1 of the creation week would be Genesis 1, 3 through 5. Day 2 of the same creation week would be Genesis 1, 6 through 8. Day 3 is verses 9 through 13. Day 4 is verses 14 through 19. Day 5 would be verses 20 through 23. Day 6 is verses 24 through 31. The seventh day, Sabbath, moves to the next chapter. That's Genesis 2, verses 1 through 3. And Troy continues, Ezekiel 46:1 says that the gate to the temple is shut on all 6 workdays, but open on the Sabbath and new moon. Last month, new moon was on a Friday as of this writing. If the tabernacle were still here, and I asked Brother White, here's the question, would the gate have been open or shut? How would he answer? If he said open because it's new moon day, I would respond that Friday is a work day, the gate must be shut. If he agreed, of course, Friday is a work day, it must be shut, I'd reply, but friend, it is new moon, it must be open. He has no correct answer because he's applying a pagan papal calendar to his scriptural calendar event.
Okay, and then there's a creator calendar here showing new moon day as day 1, and it's always a separate day, and there's more about this coming. Well, I guess I can explain this page, Brother Pete. Gate, it shows the work day, the gate is shut, Sabbath day, or new moon day, the gate is open, and Sabbath day is open. So it repeats Ezekiel 46:1. Thus saith the sovereign Jehovah, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. So the gates are open new moon day and Sabbath days.
Troy says, and I have 3 witnesses. Amos 8:5, Isaiah 66:23, and 2 Kings 4:23 also prove that the days of set-apart convocation, Sabbaths and new moon days, belong in a separate category apart from the 6 common work days.
We did a video about this. You can look this up on our YouTube channel, 3 types of days.
Troy continues, Amos, the unscrupulous vendors are seeking to cheat the Israelites, but it is Sabbath and new moon. Israel won't come out to buy their wares until a work day. In Isaiah, apparently, we will worship Yahweh on the Sabbaths and new moon days, not on work days.
Because Isaiah 66:23 says, from new moon to new moon and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh will come and worship before me, declares Jehovah.
The Shunammite woman. 2 Kings. The boy collapses in the field. His mother races out and scoops him up and runs inside. There the boy dies in her lap. So she runs upstairs, places the boy on Elisha's bed, then runs to her husband, asking permission to take a donkey and a servant with her to go see the prophet, to which he inquires, it is neither new moon nor Sabbath. Why do you want to go to see him today? Where was the man? He's in the field. What was he doing? He's working.
Okay, and Lew White is talking about the manna now. Did Yahuwah reteach Israel the week with the moon or manna? And Yahuwah said to Moshe, See, I am raining bread, or manna, from the heavens for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day in order to try or test them, whether they walk in my Torah or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Exodus 16:4 and 5.
And Troy says, there is so much more that Brother White could have said about manna, but he asks a question and then is on to the next, like a bee pollinating flowers. Did not bother to take a case, build a case, and prove his point. I, on the other hand, am under no such delusions. I understand that I cannot expect you to simply accept my conclusions without offering you any evidence. Exodus 16 is the first place where the word Sabbath is used in Scripture. In the first verse, Yahweh is speaking to Moses and Aaron on the 15th day of the 2nd month and gives them what turns out to be a simple math equation. From day 15, add 6 of manna, and that comes to 21. The next day, the 22nd, is the Sabbath. So 15 plus 6 equal 22.
Okay, so the first day that manna came was on the first day of the week, so that also proves the Sabbaths to be the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. And that would be me talking, not Brother Lew.
Okay. And Troy says, Israel was to collect one portion of manna from the 16th to the 20th, and a double portion on the 21st, because the morrow was the Sabbath. If the 22nd is the Sabbath, so is the 15th, as well as the 8th and the 29th. The first day of the month is New Moon Day, not Sabbath. So the question is, what was Lew White's point? The evidence surrounding the manna proves that the Sabbaths were on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th days of that month, same as every other lunar month. Why toss out this opportunity for me to pounce upon? What prompted him to assume that this proves Satire Day was the Sabbath? Exodus 16 offers a 1-week sample, not 40-year sample, that proved the Sabbath was every 7th day without interruption. Here's an interesting fact. Historically, Israel fasted on new moon days. Says Hutton Webster, quote, the establishment of a periodic week ending in a Sabbath observed every 7th day was doubtless responsible for the gradual obsolescence of the new moon festival as a period of general abstinence, since the continuous weeks, the new moon day and the Sabbath day, would from time to time coincide. That is in his work Rest Days, page 255. Quote, each new moon was celebrated with a fast. That's the Jewish Family Celebrations, page 35. A day of fasting on which abstinence from all meats and drinks is enjoined. Again, end quote, that's Philo. Troy continues, I find it interesting that science has shown that fasting once a month is great for your health. Satire Day Sabbath keepers who have knowledge of the health message should jump up and down and shout for joy, but they don't, because they must also admit defeat regarding the manna issue. Satire Day Sabbatarians have have tried to use the story of the manna as proof that the lunar Sabbath is a false teaching. They say the narrative in Exodus 16 offers no instruction for Israel to pick up manna or not on new moon during their 40 years in the wilderness. These same folks admit that the new moons were observed, but because there is no mention of them in conjunction with the falling of the manna, they say that this proves that the 7-day weeks are not interrupted by the new moon days, and therefore manna must have fallen on the new moon days. In the same breath, these same well-meaning folks insist that the days of the week go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, uninterrupted all the way back to creation, and with no evidence other than our present Gregorian calendar that their tradition says that Satire Day is the 7th day.
And I'll just put in here, whenever Troy says Satire Day, it's Saturday to us.
Troy continues, let me propose that this is not the case for several reasons. 1, when Israel was walking in Torah, they always observed the same lunar solar calendar established in Genesis 1. Point 2, with this calendar, the days of new moon are described as a third category of day. In Ezekiel 46:1, 2 Kings 4:23, Isaiah 66:23, and Amos 8:5, period. Since new moon is a third category of day, neither a work day nor Sabbath, elsewhere in Scripture, then it was a third category of day during Israel's wilderness sojourn. Point 3, by insisting that Israel gathered manna on new moon days during their wilderness sojourn, they are adding to Torah in violation of Deuteronomy 4:2. Scripture does not say whether Israel gathered or ate manna on new moon days, so they can only speculate. Where Scripture is silence on our part is golden. Satire Day is only the 7th day of the week by virtue of Emperor Constantine. In 321 AD, he venerated the day of the sun, which moves Saturday from its coveted position as first day. And again, I can't see the rest of that line.
And it put Saturday as day 7. It's below my screen here, too.
Troy continues, I can't simply state this without offering you the evidence. To assume that Israel observed the pagan 7-day planetary week in the 1st century when Rome themselves did not is sheer lunacy. Rome did not officially adopt the 7-day planetary week until AD 321, when Emperor Constantine became a quote-quote Christian. At that time, Saturn's day was the first day of the 7-day planetary week, not the 7th. Here is a sketch of the planetary week circa 100 BC.
And then this picture shows Saturn day with a sickle as day 1. And it got moved to day 7 as we know it now on the Gregorian calendar.
Put the new moon day back in its rightful place in the lunar cycle, and suddenly, if one is going outside and looking at the Creator's clock, the lights in the heavens, the Sabbath will be announced by a quarter-phase moons before the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th days of each lunar cycle. There is simply no evidence in Scripture that the Sabbath is every 7th day in continuous succession. There is simply no evidence in Scripture that Satire is the Sabbath. Satire Day is the Sabbath. Scripture says that the Sabbath is the 7th day of the week, period. But whose week? Yah's week or the pagan planetary week? Children of the King believe that it is the 7th day of Yah's calendar week.
Okay, so Brother Lew says, the lunar Sabbath idea is a new wind of doctrine, promoting the idea that the phases of the moon identify or set the weekly Sabbaths.
New wind of doctrine? Don't make me laugh.
And Lew says, even among those promoting this concept, there are major differences.
That is because of the religious baggage we carry to this message. Brother White, you know something about this religious baggage. You railed against it in Fossilized Customs. This baggage does not make the lunar Sabbath wrong. It just means that we have to unlearn a lot of things that we learned in the churches that causes us to misinterpret the information regarding the Scriptural Sabbath.
Brother Lew says, these doctrines say the new moon resets the week we know as a 7-day pattern ending with the Sabbath, and that the way of Yehudim have been doing it is wrong, or the way the Jews have been doing it is wrong and inherited from the Romans.
Well, it says, correct, sort of. The Babylonian rabbis adopted the pagan 7-day planetary week from Babylon. But first-century Israel did not adopt this calendar week. But Israel did not adopt the pagan planetary week with its repeating 7-day weeks from Rome. They were scattered in AD 70, long before AD 321, when Rome adopted the pagan planetary week. However, the Jews, who are not Israelites, they are Edomites, got their Sabbath practice from the Babylonian rabbis.
Brother Lew says, all the cultures on this planet, even those never having contact with the Roman Empire, have the same 7-day week, and this pattern goes far back into the myths of history.
I'm not entirely, that's not entirely true. All nations recognize a 7-day week from creation, but that week was lunar. The pagans later adopted a 7-day week based on the planets. So regardless of who they were exposed to, the 7th-day week has been the most common throughout history, with few exceptions, since both the creation calendar week and the pagan planetary week are 7 days long. White's argument here is invalid, impotent, and weak.
Okay, then Brother Lew says, it is unchangeable, and yet these new doctrines claim there was a change.
Troy says, there has been no change to the Sabbath command. Men have simply started observing the Sabbath on the wrong calendar. We've never said there was a Sabbath change. It is still the same as it was at creation.
Brother Lew says, Yahushua never claimed there was any problem, and certainly since his coming there had been no alteration attempted by anyone anywhere.
Troy says, indeed, in the 1st century, Israel was still observing the lunar Sabbath. But to say that there has been no change since then is just plain historical ignorance. Hillel II, or Hillel II, altered the lunar Sabbath calendar in AD 341, establishing postponement laws that are not found in Torah, because there would be times when there would be back-to-back Sabbaths after the Jews adopted the pagan 7-day planetary week. There would be times when the Day of Atonement would fall on a Friday and Satire Sabbath would follow, thus the need for postponement laws. There absolutely was a calendar change, and to deny what anyone can verify is foolishness.
We did a YouTube, also you can look this up on the YouTube channel, why was the Hebrew calendar changed by Hillel II? And we also, there's another one about Jewish rules of postponement prove lunar Sabbath is true. Okay, Brother Lew, back. Here I am again. Those who teach this new lunar Sabbath method have no scripture to back them up. Reading their books and articles will readily show this.
No scriptural support? I can't say that word. ROFLMAO, see above and below.
Okay, that's Troy's surprise. No scriptural report. Look at everything. Okay, here's Brother Lew again. Anyways, he said that people that teach the lunar Sabbath have no scripture to back them up, and reading their books and articles will show this. And we go to unbelievers such as Karaites to learn our foundations will soon begin to spin out of control. Yahuwah's word is our sure foundation.
It says the Karaites do not recognize lunar Sabbath. We did not learn it from them. We went to the sure foundation. Of course, directly below is a picture of the scriptures. Excuse me. Genesis 1-4 says that the two great lights would be for signs, seasons, days, and years. Thus the calendar of Yahweh is in the heavens. Exodus 31:13, Ezekiel 20:12, and 20:20 all say that the Sabbath is a sign using the same Hebrew word found in Genesis 1:14, oath, meaning signal or beacon. Psalm 104:19 says that the moon will regulate the seasons, that's moedim, appointed time, or set feast. Leviticus 23:1-3 shows the weekly Sabbath to be the first feast, moedim, appointed times, or set feasts. This alone is enough to prove that the Sabbath is by the moon, but it does not answer every possible question as to how or why that might take place. Yours is not to ask why. Either do, that is obey, or do not. The how will only be answered by going outside and looking at the clock and watching for patterns. The lunar Sabbath is not new. It has been around since creation, but I confess that this message started gaining ground in the U.S. in the early 90s, but has been observed by someone somewhere on the earth in every generation. If not, then Yahweh is not returning to this earth. For the record, every place in Scripture that mentions it, Yahweh is returning to gather his remnant Israel, then all Israel. This includes Israelites born and those adopted or grafted in. Please recognize how important the observance of the moon are to the Creator and the relationship between the moon and the nation of Israel.
Yahuwah says, which giveth the sun for light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and the stars for light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves roar thereof. Yahweh of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me, saith Jehovah, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. Jeremiah 31:35-36.
Did you get that? If the ordinance of the moon cease to be observed, then Israel will cease being Yahweh's chosen nation. Since prophecy demands that Israel is going to be saved, then someone somewhere on earth has observed the ordinance of the moon in every generation, regardless of Lew White's assessment of it. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Did Lew White offer proof that satire is the Sabbath? Did he provide evidence that proved the Lunar Sabbath? That disproved the Lunar Sabbath, excuse me. In truth, he offered no evidence, no proof that Saturday is the Sabbath, just his opinion and a ton of distractions. People whose opinion is their God are the most self-righteous people on earth. You can't teach them anything because they can't be reasoned with. They are correct because they assume the authority to make this their reality. Ink on the page does not mean anything to them. Evidence in whatever form is irrelevant, and it does not matter what Scripture says. What the evidence is, whom they offend, the friends and family they alienate, the end justifies the means. They are right, you are wrong, and that is that. Respectfully submitted to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and that's Troy.
And this is the end, and I just want to thank Brother Pete for reading, and there's so much to learn from these rebuttals because we've heard a lot of these arguments before. It's good to know where to find Scripture and to have an answer to our family and friends. So everybody that's here, please stand by for discussion.